Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it's not often that I can turn to a lady and a gentleman and say, I saw you both give your Rosalinds. Sarah, of course, played in As You Like It upstairs at the Olivier, where Adrian was the cheek bajal in the all-male version, directed by Declan Donnellan. And it's been fascinating to hear them compare notes on part. Perhaps you could alternate it, perhaps, in a new production of As You Like It.
Oh, I don't think I could do it now.
Well, maybe not. Anyway, it's lovely to welcome you both. And here we are once again, strolling down memory lane, thinking about past experiences at the National. And now the first question is your sort of first acknowledgement of the National, the first time you heard about the National. Sarah, what was your first experience of it?
I think my first experience was going to see Uncle Vanya with Michael Redgrave, who was just unbelievable, absolutely amazing. I've seen many beautiful performances of Uncle Vanya, but never one like that. At the Old Vic, it was absolutely incredible.
Now, what a cast was that, of course.
Yes, Olivier.
Olivier directed the show, did he not?
He did.
Yes.
Yes, he did.
As Astrov.
Rosemary Harris.
Sybil Thorndike. Joan...
No.
Greenwood?
Joan Greenwood.
Joan Greenwood. Joan Plowright? Well, many a Joan. Quite a lot of people are in there, more people in this production.
Plowright.
Yes, exactly. And Sybil Thorndike, Lewis Casson as well.
Yes.
What was so special about it?
Oh, I think it was Michael, really. It was Michael Redgrave. It was this extraordinary vulnerability and tenderness and the impotence of the man. I don't mean sexual impotence, but just, you know, he's crashing about in the world, and he was so moving. He was a wonderful actor. I worked with him a little later on. It was just an honor. Yes,
great. Now, Adrian, yours is more of an experience than an actual production, your first time at the National, you might say. Tell us about that.
I got into drama school 1986, and I'd come from Birmingham, and I'd come up. And when I was first here, I got a grant, because you had to audition for a grant once you got into drama school, so there was another hurdle to go over. So I got my grant, and I was in London, and I was sleeping on someone's sofa. And I got a travel pass for a week, got a week's travel card. So in the weekends, I was in London with a new city, nothing to do. So what I did was, I only knew one route from South London to Gower Street and back again. So what I did on the weekend was, on a Sunday, I would get the travel card into the centre of town, and I would just walk. And as I walked around, I'd pass tube stations, and I'd go, oh, right, so that connects to that, and I'd just sort of find my way around in this new city. And I was walking along the South Bank, and I came to the National Theatre. It was all locked up, wasn't open on the Sundays. And it was this big, great building, you know, and I went to the glass, and I looked in. And from the glass, I must have stood there for about 10 minutes reading the posters from outside and looking at who was on and what was on. I can't remember what was on now, but I imagined the foyer filled with people coming out, seeing shows and so on. And I was just starting my training, so of course I was thinking, I wonder if one day. And that it was quite cold. It didn't have the character of a production for me. It was empty and still and capable of anything. And so it hadn't been stamped with a certain character. It was just sort of waiting to be occupied, I suppose. And that was my first impression of the National.
What year was that?
That was 86, a weekend in the autumn.
Oh,
I have to do my Olivier voice. Olivier theatre voice.
Olivier theatre.
But it was, yeah, it was empty. And I was looking through the glass and reading these posters, and that was my first impression of the National Theatre.
So was it an ambition which sort of fostered from that day on to appear at the National?
I think when you're a student and you're about to enter a profession, any profession, because you're studying, not only are you a very harsh critic, you imagine for yourself the greatest possibilities around in that profession, because you're training and you're green and you're hopeful. And I think I hoped one day that I would be on a stage here, yeah.
Well, your dreams came true.
You were waiting to say that.
Now, unsung heroes and heroines of the National. Sarah, you've chosen a very interesting and a very important person in the National story.
Michael Strawn.
Michael Strawn, yes. Now, what did he do?
Michael Strawn was a box office manager, but he went beyond being a box office manager. Last night, somebody said their unsung hero was Linda at the stage door, and I'm sure a lot of people have said Linda, and she certainly came into my mind. She is brilliant. And Michael Strawn had something of that quality. He just knew who everybody was. It wasn't just the cast and the company and everybody in the building, but he knew members of the audience when they came in. He was a fantastic facilitator, and he just always thought outside the box. And his generosity and his kindness and his support was just unbelievable. He's sadly missed in this building.
Yeah. So, I mean, what would your dealings with him be? Have people coming and can't get a ticket? Can you organise a ticket, or was it more than that?
Could be that.
Yes.
Could be quite a lot of that, actually.
Yeah. But was it also? Did he see his role as you say, as a facilitator, part of the National's welcome to the public?
Absolutely. I think he really understood the core of the building and how we need to greet each other and make the thing really work on all levels.
Because that's the problem with an organisation the size of the National, is that there are so many people. It's hard to, unless you happen to have to work with them, you don't necessarily know them.
No.
Because we got to know each other when you popped down to the bookshop store and had many long sessions of readings.
Yes.
Adrian, what about you? Who's your choice for?
For me, it would be the stage door staff. They go beyond, like Michael did, really. They go beyond the job description. They know who everyone is. They know exactly how to deal with people coming to stage door for you. I was always, it's a real skill, and I suppose everyone does it when I was green. But the first time I got a call from stage door saying, "Hello, is Adrian Lester available? It's stage door." And I went, "Yes, this is him speaking." And then he carried on and said, "Could you tell Adrian that we have a Mr. So-and-so at stage door waiting to speak to him, if you can find him?" And I went, "Oh, I see what you're doing." Because I may not know the person who's just come in. And they were brilliant. And then, inevitably, you're here late. The building wants to shut up, and the security staff are wandering around the building, around the dark corridors, wanting to lock up, making sure everything's put away and safe. And if you need to put your bag somewhere while you speak to someone, or you need an area to continue talking to your guests, they're very accommodating. They'll lock up around you and keep an ear out for when you're ready to leave and let you through. So for me, it would be the security staff and stage door staff.
Very good. Now, Sarah, which actor made the most impression on you? Either was someone you worked with or someone whose work you witnessed from the
Well, this was a hard question to answer in a way, and also it was a very easy question to answer. It's Michael Bryant.
Michael Bryant.
For me. Michael Bryant, who I'd seen give some wonderful performances before I worked with him, and I think that almost everything I did in my time at the National, apart from Copenhagen, had Michael Bryant in it. He was the most amazing actor to work with, and the most amazing actor to watch. And he was a very naughty man, of course.
Indeed.
Very, very naughty. He did very naughty things in the wings, and he used to hold up. He used to.
It's being recorded.
He used to hold up signs that would say 5 out of 10.
Now, of course, I don't know, did you know if he intended, because he came to the National to play Lenin in State of Revolution that you were in as well. Did he intend to stay for all those years, going from one production to another?
Well, I don't think he had that in his mind, but there were all sorts of things going on in his life at that time. He'd done a huge amount of film and television, but there was his wife at that time was terribly, terribly ill. And I think that being in one place, being in London, and having the offer of this wonderful work and being able to stay close to the family meant a great deal. And once he got into that kind of dynamic, it was very easy to persuade him to stay, and he was very happy to stay.
Well, quite. He kept being offered these terrific parts, of course, but I think he must have been for years. He went from one show, 10 years perhaps, 15, almost a very long time.
More,
anyway.
I would think, probably, yeah.
Now, he had these certain spots on the stage of the Olivier stage. Can you describe where the Michael Bryant spot is, do you know, and why that was so particular? Or perhaps Adrian knows.
I expect you do know now, don't you? I hope somebody's shown you where it is.
Yes.
I mean, you know, yes. I mean, it is a difficult space to play, isn't it, the Olivier? And I mean, acoustically, it is difficult. There's no point in pretending otherwise. And it is difficult because you have to play on arcs, don't you, in order to make sure that everybody's with you. But he was very brilliant at that. So he found this place. I don't know how he found it, but he must have found it one night and just. He got it. He got the sound. He got the resonance, and he knew that he was safe there. So he would gravitate there.
Yes.
And he would, and he would. But he did it very elegantly. He was the most unselfish actor. So it wasn't like hogging the space, but he just did know how to play the house.
Well, you spent a lot of the last few months or so on the Olivier stage. Adrian, did you come across Michael Bryant's spot?
I did, and I had Michael Bryant's dressing room, which. It has got a plaque on the door that says Michael Bryant, and whoever occupies that room, their name will only appear in a little paper slip to the side, and his appears there. And there's a poster of him beside the door, with a little bit about his career, written by Trevor Nunn, and a photo of him in one of his last performances here. And I was on stage and we were doing the tech, and I hit the Bryant spot. I heard the Olivier Theatre resonate and reverberate with my voice as I was speaking normally to somebody on stage. And I kind of shuffled a bit and went, oh, okay. Okay, it's just here. And I don't know if you saw Othello, but there's a point when Othello's coming into the final scene to kill Desdemona, and it is the cause, my soul. And I was caught by the idea that he needs to be quiet because he doesn't want to wake her. And when I picked up a candle and put my weapon down, and as I turned to face the bed, I was banging the Bryant spot. And so everything that came out as monumental alabaster, yet she must die or else she'll betray more men, all of that came out in a whisper, I could feel coming back to me in the auditorium. And I hit that spot, and the bed was there, and the auditorium was there, and I could direct it at the bed and know that I could hear my voice coming back to me here. And I stayed there as long as I possibly could, for obvious reasons. And as soon as I moved from that spot, I had to break the diagonal, which was good because the bed was here. So as soon as I moved from this spot, I then had to face directly out. But she was in front of me, so it was okay. All these little technical things go into just doing that moment. But I remember every night with the candle, I would be speaking, and I was completely in character, but I was going, where is it? Where is it? Till I found it and go, okay, and settle in.
So I think Michael's spirit probably guided you to the spot.
He did, and I went back to his dressing room and reported back.
So who is your nomination for the actor who's sort of made most impression on you?
It was my first job here. It was Sweeney Todd, directed by Declan Donnellan, and Julia Mackenzie was playing Mrs. Lovett. And in rehearsal one day, I came in early and saw her rehearsing with Declan and Paddy Caneen, the MD, one of the songs, the song where Mrs. Lovett first sees Sweeney Todd. And if you know it, he goes, wait, what's your rush, what's your hurry? You gave me such a fright, I thought you was a ghost. Half a minute, can't you sit? Sit you down, sit. All I meant is that I haven't seen a customer for weeks. Did you come in for a pie, sir? Da, 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 da. And it goes on like that. And in every one of those beats, she'd sing, and in every one of those beats, she stopped, and she needed a physical action. And so she would do the door handle. Then she'd go back and say, right, we'll go back again. And Declan sort of sat back in the rehearsal room. And she went over it and over it again and again and again. And every time she was supposed to be seeing something crawling along the table and hit it and then sing to Sweeney and so on. And she would rehearse, and she was supposed to see it at the corner of her eye. And one moment she looked before the music timed her to see it and banged. And then went, no, 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 and went back. And would only do it when she was singing to him. And the music went bang, she looked, bang, then she went back to him. And it was the timing and the drill. She was amazing. And I sat there just like this, with my mouth agape, watching her go over and over and over. And I wondered if at that time, I wondered if that kind of detail would read in a big theatre because it was minutiae. And at the Tech, when we were first in the theatre, I went right up to, it was the Cottesloe, and I went as far back as I could and watched. And every single moment, every note, every line, every pause for breath, even when she went and then sang next, all came across. And it was a real lesson. I never forgot it, as you can see.
Yeah. And if you don't, perhaps you're too old to play Rosalind, you could probably play her now. You'd love it. The music is there, definitely.
Sweeney.
Now, talking of one's own performances, that's the next question. What production that you were in do you remember most fondly? And Sarah, what's yours?
Well, again, I struggled a little bit with this. The American Clock, Mrs. Peachum in Threepenny Opera, but I think...
Copenhagen, presumably, too.
And Copenhagen, of course, the most extraordinary event, wasn't it? Yes. And immensely challenging. It was quite lonely, I have to say. But I think really the play and the production and the experience that stays most vividly with me is The Double Dealer, which was directed by Peter Wood and had Robert Stevens and Sir Ralph Richardson, and I played his wife. And I mean, the privilege of playing with Sir Ralph was just incredible, absolutely incredible. And there are people like Brenda Blethyn, you know, it was Brenda's almost her first job from understudying. You know, Nikki Henson, Dorothy Tootin, of course, Dermot Crowley, Michael Bryant.
Inevitably.
Yeah, I mean, it was an extraordinary, it was a wonderful piece of work, and it was exciting, yeah.
Now, tell us about acting with Sir Ralph, because well, we're never quite sure whether this eccentric was the real Sir Ralph, or whether it was a pose, or whether he'd forgotten what was real and what was...
Well, I mean, he did, the character in The Double Dealer is called Maskwell. He would get called Maxwell quite a lot. Maxwell! But no, he had a great sense of his space, and he would hold you. He might hold you away. That feels quite strong, doesn't it? To be pushed away. It was okay. I didn't mind it. I think some people found that really quite controlling, but he just knew how much space he needed. And because he was such a powerful actor, he was actually very generous. I think if you were to get on the wrong side of him, he would use that power in a quite maybe destructive way. I don't know, but I didn't have that experience with him. He was absolutely brilliant. He used to like to go over the lines of the scene that we had, a big scene that we had, and so we would do that. We would meet backstage and we'd sit on the bed that was on the revolve at the back. And there was one night when Robert Stevens was taken ill, and we didn't quite know what was going on, so he'd gone back to his dressing room. No one knew what was going to happen. And I'd gone round a little bit earlier because the night before Sir Ralph had been a tiny bit late for some reason. He was there, and I said, Robert's been taken ill. And he said, oh dear. And I said, well, what should we do? And he said, well, the show will have to stop when his next entrance. And I said, but that's now. And at that point, so we hadn't gone through our lines at all. At that point, poor John Harding is going, Maskwell, Maskwell, desperately hoping an actor would come on. And Sir Ralph took me on one side. We went up these back steps, and now John Harding is coming up towards him, and he took hold of John Harding, and he pushed him, propelled him back down the stairs. John, very relieved, rushed off the stage, and we then proceeded to do the scene, and we did it better, I think, probably, than we ever had, because it had that adrenaline, you know.
And Peter Wood, tell us about, because you worked with him a lot, didn't you?
I did.
Great flair, obviously, great partnership with Tom Stoppard, but also great flair for the restoration, or who can forget his rivals with Sir Michael
Peter
Horden.
is a great wordsmith, and he is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant teacher of how to command the text and stay above the text and work with the text. A bit like Bill Gaskell's brilliant with the text as well. I think I've learnt more from Peter Wood than perhaps anybody else, and I've been more frightened by Peter
I
Wood.
was going to say, it had a wicked tongue,
Ooh.
Peter, doesn't it? Did you ever feel find yourself on the wrong side of?
Only once in the Strippenny Opera, just for a moment or two. We were okay though.
Right.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah.
Now, for you, Adrian, your fondest memory goes back a long time, all of 2 days. So you hung up your fatigues as Othello. So
Yeah.
obviously that's been an extraordinary experience for you. Could it?
Yeah, I've only done 3 productions here. So I didn't have that much to choose from. But, Othello is easily the hardest part I've played, and the response that we got was phenomenal, and I'm still letting bits of him go. And so, yeah, my most rewarding experience at the National has been playing Othello.
Because you mentioned in the notes that it cost a lot, and I wasn't sure if that was the production cost or it demanded a lot of you. I suspect it was the second.
It demanded a lot of me. The brilliant thing about the play, the wonderful thing to watch about the play, is the fulcrum of Act 3, Scene 3, what people call the temptation scene, where Iago drops the seed and then convinces Othello that his wife is unfaithful. That's the brilliant thing is the speed with which that happens. The most difficult thing about the play is the speed with which that happens, making that believable. And as you pick apart the logic, you can see that essentially in the middle of those scenes, the play itself, dare I say this, is flawed, because the logic doesn't quite make sense. It's too fast for a general to leap to that, for me anyway. Once that belief has taken hold, then emotionally, what Iago has done in the first sort of half strategically, Othello then takes the reins and does with the rest of the play purely on emotion and poetry. No logic, just pure emotion. And that journey has been one of the toughest things I've ever had to do. It did cost a lot. At the end of the show, if you have to die on stage, anyone, please don't die on your face in bedclothes, because you can't breathe and you can't move. And that happened a couple of times. I did this and I got my hand in and I moved and I went, oh, I'm going to die, and I died and I went, and then 2 seconds later I went, oh, can't breathe. So don't do that. But when the bed went off stage and the lights changed and the rest of the company came on to take their bows, the actresses playing Desdemona and Emilia jump out of the bed, and I roll off the bed, and slowly you can get your breath back because you're trying not to breathe, or you're breathing deeply and slowly. After that final speech, you're trying to breathe deeply and slowly so the audience don't see you going and you feel dizzy and still upset, and you have about 10 seconds to get yourself around before you have to get on for the curtain call. So I didn't find it easy to sleep at night.
So is it a mixture of emotions now that the production is finished? Regret that you're not doing it anymore, but relief that you're not having to put yourself through the mill so much?
Yeah, both of those things. But it was the most rewarding thing. Everything I've learned in any medium of performance, singing for the voice, movement, dance, holding a moment with the breath and the body, the physicality, acting, imagination, previous circumstances, emotional memory, anything I've learned, everything came to bear on that role. Everything I could possibly do to sustain a character was needed and necessary for that role. So that's hard, it cost. The fact it worked is a great relief. And I'm, sorry to miss it, but I'm glad I'm missing it.
It was the most brilliant performance.
Oh, thank
and
you.
And you will play it again.
Now here, the next section is productions, National Theatre productions I wish I'd seen, which I suppose is quite tricky to when you think about Because why do you know you wanted to have seen them if you hadn't seen them, in other words? But which is yours? What is your choice?
Flea in her ear.
A Flea the Fado, yeah, at the Old Vic.
At the Old Vic.
Now, why that particular production?
Oh, I don't know. Everyone talked about it all the time, and people would act out bits of it, and and I knew many of the members of the cast, and it just sounded so brilliant, and I cannot think for the life of me how I missed it.
Yes, why didn't you have all this? Why didn't you go and see it? Who directed it?
No, they weren't telling me while it was on.
Oh, no.
Afterwards.
Oh, afterwards. Well, I thought you might have sort of been hanging. Actors do talk about what the shows they're in at the time. Who directed it?
Jacques Charon.
Ah. So
Jacques Charon.
The sort of le vrai
The Fado man,
man.
Yes.
And the trouble is, do you know, from what you heard of it, though, what was it that made it sound so interesting
But I
and
think
exciting?
what was extraordinary about it was that apparently he said he would only have 3 weeks rehearsal. They were all absolutely devastated, you know. And he came and because it was a Fado, he'd got it, and farce is such a specific technique, isn't it? He'd got it all absolutely mapped out, so he knew exactly where everybody was going to go. And so apparently he said to them, through an interpreter, because he didn't speak terribly good English, so I'm told, he said, you know, this is how we're going to do it. And some people just bought that, and some people found that really, really, really difficult. And so I think there was a bit of a struggle. So by the end of week 1, they ran it. And week 2, they were running. And week 3, they were, you know, finessing. And then they went to attack, and then they did their first night.
Yes. Because I think, I don't know how you feel about it, that I've seen more Fado failures than Fado successes.
Yes, it's very hard. Farce is so hard.
What's difficult about it then as a genre?
It's because you do have to be very, very, very precise. And, you know, the door banging this and then the door banging like that and all of those. You can't mess around with it. You haven't got that flexibility that you might have in something else. Shakespeare, even Chekhov, anything else where you might just bend it a little bit or just do something a little surprising, you know. You can't. You absolutely can't. If you do, you mess it up.
It's a dance without music, isn't it?
It's a dance without music.
It's just, it has to be on.
No.
And also, because the stories are so silly, it's got to be really fast, hasn't it? Because if the audience gets ahead of you, you know, you might as well go home.
Well, quite. Now, Adrian, what about the productions that you wish you'd seen, some of which you may not have heard about till it was too late, or some that you meant to see while they were still on?
Way too late.
Quite a recent one.
Coming here, they echo around the building. Copenhagen is one of them. Pravda, I wish I'd seen. The people have described Anthony Hopkins at the beginning coming on and coming through the door and walking down stage, a complete embodiment of evil, and how amazing it was. I wish I'd seen those shows.
Yes. And you also mentioned the Frankenstein.
Yeah, I missed that. I missed that, and as always in life, there are 2 evenings you can possibly go, and they're both completely sold out, and you can't get tickets. But I wish I'd seen it. People describing the birth of the monster and and the fact they swapped each night.
Yes.
Something Rory and I promised each other we'd do, and we didn't in Othello. And see, it's been done in the past, and seeing that work, I wish I'd seen it. I really wish I'd seen it, but.
What was interesting about Pravda? Did you see Pravda too, Sarah?
I did.
Yes. What was it? I don't think Hare and Brenton, they set out to create a kind of monster figure, and did. But I think they rather fell in love with the character of Lambert LaRue. And someone was asking me the other night, do contemporary writers still write star parts? And I could only really think of, well, one of them would certainly be Hopkins as Lambert LaRue. Do you think it is true that perhaps today's writers are more collegiate? They don't write big, juicy parts like
I can't believe that can be true. I mean, I can't think of an example now, but, you know, one often hears of, you know, there's a beautiful playwright called Stuart Permott. Stuart writes for specific actors. He writes for Celia Imrie, and he writes for, I'm sure that playwrights have an actor in mind.
Good.
Lolita did for Red Velvet.
Yes, of course.
I'm married to her, so it helps. But one of the she was in writing. She was praised for having the guts to go against the normal flow that young writers are in, which is to write company parts and to actually structure a role that explored the facets of one person. But as I said, being married to her helped.
Yes, helped at the audition stage.
Helped at the audition stages to role.
Now, costume, Sarah, you've been asked to choose what your favourite costume of all
I know,
the costumes.
you'd think it would be an easy one, this, wouldn't you? I really struggled and struggled and struggled. I tried to think of other people's costumes that I might have liked to wear. I could only think of plays that I'd done that weren't at the National Theatre. And then I remembered there was a beautiful play called Undiscovered Country that Tom Stoppard adapted from the Schnitzler.
And Peter Wood directed, didn't he?
Which Peter, it was part of the Peter, oh no, it wasn't part of the Peter Wood season, actually. But yes, he did direct it beautifully. It was a wonderful production. Dorothy Tootin, John Wood. And I played this woman, Mrs. Val, who was a widow. And she had this amazing black dress and a big black hat and a black, it was everything black, you know. You can see I like the black. And I think if I was going to go to the fancy dress party, the idea of going to a fancy dress party doesn't appeal that much, I must say. I mean, we do it for a profession, don't we? You know, but if I had to, I'd quite like to swan up in that.
And what now, I think very few people can get away with what you wore in this particular production, Adrian, but you did magnificently. Would you like to share with us your favourite costume?
It didn't take me long to think. When I did the show, what I was wearing got as much praise as my efforts to portray Anthony Hope, the sailor. But it was the navy blue short jacket with the brass buttons, the cap, the little white kerchief around the front, and the big white bell-bottom trousers with the boots. And I saw a picture of myself once, and I was young then, but I looked about 12. I sort of, what? But I've trained. And it's the sailor suit. It's Anthony Hope's sailor suit. And I remember commentary. You know, I thought, first time at the National, Sweeney Todd. I'm really excited about it. And people wrote about the costume as much as they wrote about he was good, but what he was wearing. So I think I would nab that and wear it to a fancy dress party. I wouldn't drink red wine in it though, because those white trousers are murder.
You reminded me slightly of Gene Kelly and Frank Sinatra and Jules Munchin in On the Town, you know, about the three sailors.
That's something I wanted to do as well.
Now, favourite sort of hidden spots in the National, your favourite little places you might like to retire to or spend some time in. What's yours, Sarah?
Well, it isn't so much somewhere I'd like to retire in, but there's a balcony that goes from the green room along the back there, and there used to be, there possibly still is, a pass door that goes into the upper level of the Cottesloe. So it was wonderful to be able to, and in the very early days, the shows used to go up at different times. So I think the Cottesloe used to go up at 7:30, and the Littleton would go up at 7:45. So if you were doing something like Bedroom Farce, which it took over, and my character didn't go on for the first 25 minutes, and because we went up later, you've got like sort of 20 minutes you could go and watch of the show in the Cottesloe. I don't think I'd dare do that now, but you know, so I would go along this place and I'd watch, and I'd go off on my watch, of course, and make sure that I was back in there. And then at the end of the show, very, very often, as soon as we'd taken our costumes off and everything, we'd rush there to go and watch the end of the mysteries, the Bill Bryden mysteries, or Lark Rise to Candlefoot. Oh my God, it was just incredible. So that was my favorite place.
And Adrian, where would you like to find you loitering at the National Theatre?
There's in the dressing room quadrant on level 2. I was on level 2 in a dressing room for Henry V and for Othello. And you can either, it's hard to describe, you can walk from the quadrant along a corridor which is underneath the Olivier stage and get to the green room and the bar backstage. Or you can walk the opposite way around the quadrant, and then there's a pass door which is just over there, which lets you into the foyer of the National Theatre, but a level above ground. So you're at the gallery level, at the Littleton gallery level. And outside the Littleton, there are these tables and chairs that are normally left empty by then. And you're next to the mezzanine restaurant. And if you have guests and you have a bottle of wine or something in the fridge, it's really useful. You can go to the bar pick up your guests, use your pass key, go straight through the dressing room quadrant, come straight out by the gallery, and sit and have a glass of wine in the empty foyer as everyone's making their way home underneath, unaware that somebody's upstairs. In the empty foyer where you don't have to shout at your guests because you're not in the bar, and you've got all these beautiful pictures around you in the gallery, and you can sit there for a good hour, hour and a half. This is why I like the security staff, because if they know me, and if they see me, I'll just go, oh, don't worry. And then they completely lock the building around us and turn everything off. And you can sit there for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, because you'll use your pass to get back into the building, down through stage door and let them out. So that was always a favorite spot of mine. If I had people in that I really wanted to talk to and not crowd into the bar, I would simply pick them up, take them round, and we'd have a drink, basically front of house by the mezzanine restaurant without anybody knowing or anyone bothering us.
I mean, what about the dressing rooms at the National? I mean, are dressing rooms, or do you spend so much of your time there? How do they kind of figure in terms of standard of dressing room or dressing room experience here at the National?
Well, my memory of them as being good, really. But what's great, of course, is this quadrangle, so that
you can see everybody.
It's like a village, isn't it?
It is.
And you wave across at people and people in different costumes. So it's absolutely fantastic. And lots of terrible things would go on. Michael Gambon and Stephen Moore, lots of water being poured from, you know, your name would be called out and you'd go like that, and you know.
And it is wonderful that you are getting changed and you pull back your curtains and look out. And everyone's being called, the beginners are being called for each theatre at different times. But all these people in different costumes, weird. I'm there in my combat fatigues looking out the window and seeing somebody in the 19th century sort of court shoes and hat and everything. And when on the first night of any show, when the beginners is called for their press night, everyone comes to the window and bangs the glass. And this thunderous sound echoes out of the quadrangle. Just to wish that company good luck. And we had two, because we had our first night, everyone went like this, and I patted for a few minutes and went, I'm about to go and play Othello, oh my God. And went back. But then when we were doing the NT Live as well, we were all excited, but at the beginner's call for the NT Live, suddenly there was this thunderous sound, and I looked out, and all the actors from every company was at the glass, banging the glass, going, give him hell.
That's fantastic. I wonder when
great.
that began. I've never witnessed that.
You've never had that?
No,
Oh,
no.
God,
But there used to be the thing that was called Sir Ralph's rocket.
Rocket, yeah.
I beg your pardon.
Off, didn't it? It was very, very, very loud, and I think it was possibly a bit dangerous. Anyway, it stopped after about how many years, Angus?
I think Health and Safety stepped in.
With the terrorism.
Can I just say, come back on the 22nd of October and you might just see it again.
Oh, there we are.
Oh, wow.
A revival of the rocket.
For Joan.
Now, you now have a fantasy of being at the National morning, noon and night. So you're at the National, you see something in the morning, something in the afternoon, something in the evening. So which three productions have you chosen and why, Sarah, to spend your day at the National?
Well, I'm going to go and see Lark Rise to Candlefoot in the morning because it's just so beautiful and the space was used in the most exciting and imaginative way, and it was promenade theatre, so you were there in the audience and you became the straw that was being mown and I don't know, all a number of things you moving about. It was just incredible. And in the afternoon, I'll be going to see David Hare's Plenty. I was doing, I don't know what I was doing. I was doing something in the theatre, and I'd gone into the dressing room to pick up a book or something, I think. And the tannoy was on. From the Littleton, they were doing a technical rehearsal of Plenty. And I heard this scene, which was Kate Nelligan, thank you, and Stephen Moore. And it was so incredible, what I heard. It was so beautifully acted, so brilliantly written, that I sat down in my chair for about 20 minutes. I listened to the scene. It was just breathtaking. I had no idea what it looked like at all. It was just wonderful. And then I went to the press night. It was this amazing, amazing, amazing play. Brilliant acting, brilliant, brilliant. And in the evening, I'd go and see Peter Nicholls' National Health.
Yes. Now, why that one?
I saw that at the Old Vic. It was just, I don't know, it was such a brilliant piece of writing. it had such wonderful performances. Jim Dale, Gillian Barge. Do you remember Gillian
Yes, very well.
Barge? Is that doctor who was so exhausted? She was with her patients on the bed and she'd start to fall asleep. You know, it was just so beautifully observed. I thought it was a great play and a great piece of theatre.
And when you think about the various scandals at mid-staffs and other parts of the health service, it's amazing that the play hasn't been revived. I can't think of a single production of it since that original Old Vic one.
No, you're right. Although quite a lot of his plays are being revived, so
Yeah,
maybe
I know,
it's about to
yes,
happen.
but it's
Let's
the
hope.
same. It's the other ones that keep being revived. Privates on Parade, or
Yeah, I know.
anything like that. Going back to Lark Rise to Camera, I think one should, one can't emphasise enough the success of the Bill Bryden Cottesloe Company through, the Mysteries and Lark Rise and other shows that they did, World Turned Upside Down. That showed you the real benefits of a kind of regular company, didn't it? I mean, from your point of view, why do you think that worked so well? Why Bill got it right so often?
Well, there was a lot of boozy guys.
Yes.
I don't know. They were very kind of macho people,
Oh, yes,
weren't they?
absolutely.
The girls didn't get much of a look in. It has to be said, it was a very male-orientated thing, but it had a fantastic dynamic and an incredible energy. And they all adored one another, and they were very loyal, and some wonderful, wonderful actors.
Yes.
Some of them, I don't know how they stood up, but they were wonderful.
Yes. I think Edna Dorey was often the token lady.
Edna and Brenda
Yes,
Blethyn.
and Brenda Blethyn too. And you say you heard this extract from Plenty, but did you know anything about the play or the characters?
I don't think I did.
No. So it was, what was it drew you in?
Oh,
so
it was a very powerful scene between this husband and wife. It was very shocking and very moving and raw.
Yes.
And I mean, Stephen I'd worked with a lot and adore, and I hadn't heard Stephen with that kind of rawness before. And Nelligan, of course, is an astonishing actor.
Yes.
Well, they just fired each other. It was brilliant.
I mean, I do think it's her career, of course. She went back to her native Canada, didn't she? And I see her in the odd film or the odd TV movie or something, but a great loss to the stage, I'd have thought. So come back, Kate. We need you.
Yes, yes.
Now, Adrian, what about your choice of your three corkers?
My three corkers. I would be going to see Moon on a Rainbow Shawl in the morning, which Michael Buffon directed in the then Cottesloe, fairly recently. A play, I love it when I go and see something and I have no expectations, no idea what to expect. A play set in just outside of a village in Trinidad with, in the 50s, and the relationships of the people who lived there. So beautifully observed. So beautifully observed. Accents were perfect. The relationships, the detail, the pain, the lost love, anguish. I mean, directed by an actor, an actor's director. It was just wonderful. There wasn't a subject or an event or anything that you could say had a gimmick to it. It wasn't about the death of a, or the murder of a, or anything. It was just people stuck, unhappy, trying to find a sliver of happiness within each other and in the life that they had. And it was heartbreaking and beautifully done. Martina Laird and Jenny Jules and Danny Sapani. Beautifully done. And then in the afternoon, I would go and see August Osage County, which I can hear some yeses. It's almost like I'm in church and hear an amen. Which was, again, I had no expectations. Tracy Let's Play, the Steppenwolf Company coming over. And it was brilliant. The set was a house, the bare bones of a house. You could see into every room, and each room was lit accordingly when actors were in there. And the mother, the matriarch of the family, and her daughters, and the daughters' relationships with their husbands, I loved it. It was female-centric. It was women of a certain age, and I think whenever you get the chance to give people who don't necessarily normally get the chance to do a lot of work, when work starts to shrink, as my wife has found out, and many actresses find out at a certain age, when the parts start to shrink, to see that play, suddenly this incredible energy and dialogue, and it was cruel. It was a cruel, cruel play, but it was amazing. Again, the detail caught me. I think I'm one for detail.
And hasn't it just been filmed with Meryl Streep and Julia Roberts?
Yes, it has.
Right.
Yes, it has.
So, will we go and see that, or is the memory of the play too
The
fresh?
memory of the play is really fresh and strong. There was something quite theatrical about the performances, something Greek about the performances, and I'm not sure that that would translate into a naturalistic circumstance on screen. I'm not sure, but it was brilliant.
And what's your evening's entertainment?
My evening's entertainment is going back to a first love, is DV8 Physical Theatre, Just for Show, which I don't know if anybody saw. Did you see that? Okay. I just thought it was amazing. I thought it was amazing. They played with the idea of controlling how you want people to see you, the idea of controlling with your voice, your mannerisms and your dress, when you smile, when you don't smile, exactly what you want other people to see of you. And then use that as a tension to describe what's actually going on underneath. And in dance and movement, and it was fantastic. I remember one moment where members of the company have been dancing and doing amazing things, and I remember one moment where a woman, a dancer, an actress, comes in on point in a tutu, and she comes in on point, perfect physique, ballerina, and she comes on stage, and there's a black curtain behind her, and then men in black suits come on, and they do every movement for her. So if she wants to move her head, they do it. And they look bored while they're doing it. If you can imagine this, and they're sort of sitting there. And when she wants to look at another part of the audience, they move her head and then sit back. And she's completely made up. And she's smiling the whole time. How are you? How are you doing? Hello, welcome, hi. And she then introduces the members of the company, but she does it in breathtakingly honest fashion. She introduces a member of the company and said, I'm making this up now, this is Doris. Doris is a wonderful dancer, and Doris is a wonderful dancer, we've seen her. Doris is a little overweight to go to the Royal Ballet. And Doris is standing there staring at you, and at the moment you want to laugh, you go, oh. Because somehow it's true, and she's a little overweight for the Royal Ballet, but she's an amazing dancer, which is why we get her. Isn't that wonderful? And I was caught between that kind of sort of blatant honesty, but yet done for performance. I thought it was amazing. The whole evening was like that. I can't describe other moments to you because it's dance and it's just, it's banal, but it was truly brilliant.
I mean, in sort of conclusion then, what, I'm always fascinated to look at plays through the prisms of actors' imaginations and attitudes. What for you makes an evening in the theatre especially worthwhile, especially enjoyable or memorable?
I think for me, it is in the detail. I'm very easily moved. I'm easily moved by a story or the way in which somebody tells the story. I'm as moved by the expertise of the artists, just the very fact that they're doing it. You know, I went to see the Book of Mormon on Saturday afternoon. It's just absolutely astonishing. Every detail of it it has its own truth. So I think it's truth, really. I need to be touched. I'm easily touched. But if I'm not touched, then it's empty and a bit dead.
What does it for you, Adrian? Pinter, I should think.
The pause. Yeah. I think, as much as from an actor's point of view, as an audience member's point of view, the two things working at once in my head as I watch someone on stage, I can tell when someone's lying, I can tell when someone's taking it easy on a matinee, I can tell when someone's busking it, I'm really appreciative of forms of singing and dance, because you can't busk it, you can't lie, you can't cheat. If there's no talent there, you'll see it. That's not the same with some acting. So what makes it perfect for me is when someone displays the intelligence, awareness and skill to share something that is deeply sensitive and deeply human about themselves through the words they've been given to the audience. And when I see that, I am blown away. Even if it's for a moment. The delivery of something that is beyond class, beyond sex, beyond place of birth, beyond and all of that, of what it is to be human in that one line, in that moment, delivered to other human beings who are watching, not recorded, not saved, just immediate. For me, that touches me and moves me, and that for me makes. I think that's the point of theatre, actually.
Indeed.
I think I'll go as far as to say that. I think that's the point.
Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I must thank Sara and Adrian for sharing some of their theatrical memories with us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Sara Kestelman and Adrian Lesser.